Dr. Joyce from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Chairman Wenstrup, for holding today's hearing. And thank you for our witnesses for your time and for your testimony. COVID-19 was the most devastating global public health emergency since the inception of the World Health Organization. Their flagrant lack of action from the beginning was a primary concern, but their blatant dereliction of responsibility is why there must be reform, why we are holding this hearing. This subcommittee was established in response to the misguided policies, mishandling, and inconsistent guidance that arose amid the pandemic. In the beginning, the COVID narrative was controlled by the WHO, who are corrupted by the CCP, and they ultimately placed CCP political interests ahead of their international duties. The CCP steered the dialogue. The CCP skewed the statistics, and they fed the WHO information that would ultimately effectively shield the Chinese government from blame. Now it's almost 4 years later, and the same organization is calling on member nations to enter a pandemic treaty. Entering a treaty with an organization that refuses to hold bad actors accountable is the antithesis of what WHO's mission, and it is the antithesis of the principles of all Americans. The American people want and the American people deserve answers from this committee. They deserve to know that we intend to safeguard our nation and protect our citizens from the next global public health emergency. Ambassador Nkengasong, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution clearly states the powers of the executive office as it pertains to the making or entering of treaties. Nowhere does it grant the World Health Assembly that authority. Do you believe that the World Health Assembly will attempt to act unilaterally and circumvent congressional approval and enter the U.S. into an agreement like the Pandemic Prevention Preparedness Response Treaty?
Thank you, Congressman, for the statement. And let me just repeat what I stated earlier before you arrived, that the pandemic accord, which is still being drafted, if we look at Article 3, Section 2, it talks about sovereignty, which is that the countries, and only the countries, have the right over the people and themselves to make a determination as to how to manage health issues in the country. So absolutely, as a principle of that pandemic accord treaty, we still don't know how we'll call it in the end, but that is the accord is what is a word that is being used now, not necessarily a treaty, because we're still early on in the process of negotiation with more than 194 countries or so. So that absolutely, we are at the table. We will never allow any language in the accord or treaty that will remotely suggest that our sovereignty will be taken over by the WHO.
And it would never occur, from your understanding, whether you call it a treaty or an accord, it would not occur without congressional approval. Is that what you just stated, sir?
I'm stating that we are still early, sir, in the negotiation, and we don't know how the final outcome will look like. And
the citizens of the United States expect that any treaty would only occur with by the Senate, with congressional approval. Ms. Pace, the WHO acted as a bulwarking apologist for the CCP, and a few examples include they praised the CCP's failed efforts to combat the pandemic despite a globally recognized cover-up. The WHO denied human-to-human spread of COVID-19 based solely on CCP propaganda. The WHO delayed naming COVID-19 as a public health emergency because China claimed that the spread was under control. The WHO delayed implementing pandemic stalling measures to protect trade with and travel to China. With that in mind, how can we ever restore trust, public trust in the WHO? You, all three of you, just stated, you acknowledged when Chairman Comer asked if China was forthcoming with COVID-19. You all said no. when Chairman Comer continued, and all three of you stated that the People's Republic of China should be held accountable. Isn't that trust permanently fractured with the WHO's firm alliance with the Chinese Communist Party?
Thank you for this question, sir, and Mr. Congressman, excuse me. You know, it is, as I mentioned earlier, very frustrating and unfortunate that China in particular did not cooperate at such a critical time. It's one of the reasons why we are working through these international health regulations to rebalance things, to make it so that we are not all beholden to the failure of a single actor.
But wasn't that single actor, didn't that fracture your ability to come forth as what you should be doing by your mission statement? Isn't that culpability because of the Chinese Communist Party's undue and over-influence on the WHO?
It's one of the reasons we're frustrated. Our hands were tied because we did not receive the information that we needed from them. And so what we're trying to do through these amendments is unlock that information by other means in the event something like that ever happens again.
So my final question is, how would you prepare your organizations for the next pandemic, both in-house and in conjunction with the WHO, knowing what you just stated, that makes it an incredibly difficult situation and a relationship that does not have trust in it?
Thank you again for this question, because it's so important that we do rebuild that very trust, and so that we can be most effective in preventing or mitigating a future pandemic. One of the things that we are doing as a lesson learned is strengthening not only our multilateral partnerships, but our regional partnerships, and so ensuring that we are working with networks, particularly in Asia, but in other regions of the world, to understand disease trends. This is building on, obviously, decades of relationships and partnerships that HHS has had globally over time, but really looking to not rely, again, on a single actor to save us is something that we have taken away from COVID-19.
And my time is closing, and I think you really drive home that the single actor did not save us. That single actor, the Chinese Communist Party, destroyed so many human lives. And the culpability and the ability to respond is what we have taken on as a charge for this committee. Mr. Chairman, thank you. I thank the witnesses for being present here today, and I yield the remainder of my time.